We have Joseph Lyle Taylor in the house. Fasten your seatbelts.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Such a good song.
It is.
Perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight On. I am your host, Tammy Govea, and we have Joseph Lyle Taylor here with us today. We wrangled him in. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Tammy.
Welcome.
I like that song.
It's a great song. I know you've been a busy bee, so it's been great to finally get you here in the studio.
Well, thank you very much.
There's actually a lot to talk about. When I started doing research on you,
I've been around.
God bless the internet, right? In my eyes, you're kind of a Renaissance man because you've kind of done it all: the acting, the writing, directing. Do you sing and dance too, or
Not well.
not well? Okay, but a little bit, maybe a little
A
bit.
little bit, yeah.
So what fascinates me about this whole thing is people's journeys, how they got to where they're at, especially in this business, because you don't get here by yourself. It takes a village, right? And hopefully you've got support and people that have traveled along the way with you. But I just kind of want to talk about, last I checked, Vidor,
Texas.
Potato.
Yeah.
Vidor, Texas had a population of almost 11,000.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
It has a sort of a bigger rural outlying population, outside of the city itself. But yeah, it's a pretty small town.
So that's where you're
I
from.
think I graduated with a class of 480, something like that.
Okay. How did you get from that small town? How did you even think about going into the entertainment industry?
It just kind of happened. I got a friend of mine, Brian Barron, was my best friend in high school. And he's like, you need to get into the drama class because it's an easy A. And I was like, all right. We played football together in Texas. And so I got into the drama class and we started doing skits and things like that and little playlets, and it was a blast.
So this was high school?
This was high school.
Okay.
My sophomore year of high school, and then by my senior year, wasn't really planning on going to college. Was just going to get a job and start working, which is what people do down there. A lot of people.
What were you going to fall into if it wasn't?
Probably prison. I probably would have ended up
that's full-time work.
in jail. I don't know. We were wild kids and did stupid things, but I had this teacher in my drama department, Adonia Placette.
Wow, you remember the name.
Oh, she was a big influence. The first thing I saw, we did a UIL competition, and so you would take a full-length play, and they took Peter Shaffer's play Equus, and they cut it down to a one act. And I wasn't in it, I was still young, but Bob Wilcox and Phil Hinch and a few other guys there, the seniors, they did Equus. And so we got to go see it, our class, we let us out of class, and the freshmen went, the sophomores went, we didn't like that. And it was phenomenal. I mean, it was just phenomenal.
What was it that just kind of blew your mind?
The staging. So, all the guys, the horses, they had built these sort of wire horse heads, and they were up on hooves, and prancing around. And then they were, if you don't know the show Equus, Sidney Lumet directed a movie of it, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Who I also happen to have worked with. But, and then Adonia Placette just staged this thing, and all the acting. Of course, probably if I went back and looked at it, I'd be like, but at the time it was brilliant, and it's such a dramatic piece.
Yeah, very heavy.
The kid stabs the horse's eyes out, and it's all mixed with religion, and it's just...
That's a pretty intense project to do.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
One act. And so they did that at the high school, and they won third in state. So they won the big, it was huge. It was huge. And so I stayed involved and did understudy things. And then we did The Elephant Man the next year. and which was also amazing.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff.
So I had this kind of Adonia Placette influence,
Thank you, Adonia.
in my youth, and so she left and went to teach at Lamar my senior year, but Jackie Summers came in, and Jackie Summers said, you really should look into getting a scholarship, to college for acting. So I made some phone calls, and Sam Houston State had some scholarships, and so I drove up and, of course, did Alan Strang from Equus, stabbing the horse's eye out, and they gave me a scholarship.
Oh my
so I
gosh.
went there.
Was that scary? Exciting, but I
Oh,
mean
it's
that's
crazy.
a big move.
There was on the drive up there, it was probably a 3-hour drive from where I was, maybe less. And but there was a field of all these horses, and so I got out and went and talked to the horses.
You
and
did
really,
not.
I did.
Is that what they call method acting?
I was an organic method actor from day one.
In the field with the horses,
Doing the thing.
emoting.
I'm
yes.
doing the thing in the field with the horses, on my knees with the horses. So if anybody looked at me and said, "Who is this crazy guy?" I was trying to get a scholarship to college.
And it worked.
And it worked. And so I went there for a year, and I did a play there called Lone Star by James McClure, which is about a younger brother and an older brother. I played the younger brother, Ray, and the younger brother has had sexual relations with the older brother's wife when the older brother was off at Vietnam. And he feels really bad about it. And so it's a comedy, and it's
a comedy.
it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And they have a sister piece called Laundry and Bourbon where the women talk about things that happen in
I've heard of
Texas.
Laundry and Bourbon.
I recommend both those plays.
Okay.
They're really a lot of fun. And so we did that, and it was a big hit. And but I just wanted to do something else. And so I saw up on the billboard, or the cork board, that there was some auditioning for the PCPA Theater Fest in Santa Maria, California. And for some reason, I think, what's his name had gone there. I'm blanking on his name. I got his picture in my head. But anyway, I'm like, I'm going to go see if I can get in there, And so I called up, and they gave me an audition. I flew out to Santa Maria, California.
Where's Santa Maria, California?
It's just north of Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Probably 100 miles, maybe.
Okay.
Just around San Luis Obispo, Central Coast by the Air Force. And by this time, I had moved on from the Equus thing, and I was doing a piece from Marat Sade, which was crazy. A crazy piece in the bathtub with a fever, But it worked.
So it was a monologue?
Yeah. And then I did that, and I think I might have done something from Lone Star, and they accepted me, so I got to move to California, and I guess it was 84,
Okay.
85, something like that.
And then from there,
Well, from there, I did 2 years there.
I was going to say 2 years?
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
2-year program. You get an associate's degree, but it was great. It was really great. A lot of hands-on professional actors there that we worked with. That, it was really kind of a priceless sort of education.
So was it one of those scenarios where you did everything? Like you just didn't do acting, you were schooled in?
It was like a repertory company.
Yeah, okay.
So we got the small parts, and then we would have, like I got to do a studio show, what they call the studio show for the students, and that was, what was it? When You Coming Back, Red Ryder. And I played Red Ryder. And we just worked all the time.
Ton of stuff,
Ton
yeah.
of stuff. And Vincent Dowling was running the place, and he and a whole group of people from the Abbey Theatre in Ireland had come and taken over that year. And so, it was a real. I got lucky to be able to be there those 2 years.
Sounds like an intensive experience.
It was. It really was. And then I, graduated there, and I was just going to move to L.A. And a friend of mine, the music director, George McGuire, he says, "Nah, you should go to New York."
I'm thinking from what you're saying, all this theater that you're doing, it would seem like New York would be the logical thing to do. But was TV, did you think of LA because of the film and TV world?
I didn't really have any clear thoughts about things at the time.
Yeah.
I was just sort of thinking, well, I guess it's, not very far away. I can go there and see what happens.
It's easy, yeah.
I mean, it would have been a bad move on my part.
Why?
Well, because New York is so informative, and really spent my formative years there in New York and really learned the craft,
Yeah.
which I would not. I mean, I might have gotten lucky in LA and fell in with some good teachers, but me and my friend Lisa Millette drove out to San Bernardino and auditioned for. They had, I guess I don't really know what you call them, like sort of satellite guys who so you didn't have to fly to New York to audition. You could go. There were a few different places, and one of these places was San Bernardino. And this man was a professor somewhere. I don't remember his name, but we came in. We did our auditions, both Lisa and I, and we both got in to the neighborhood playhouse, which was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it was huge, especially in the '80s. It was just like,
What did that feel like when you found out that you had?
Oh, I tell you, I was so happy. Yeah, it was.
Did you miss home at all at this point, or you were just kind of on
Yes,
a roll?
Mom, I missed home.
You missed home cooking.
Yeah, that's it. No, I was on a track.
Yeah, you
man.
were on
I
a
mean,
track,
I had
yeah.
a thing. I was doing it. I was excited. I was moving to New York. Now all I had to do was go earn enough money so I could go there. So I went and my uncle had a excavation company in Texas. So I would go there in the summers and I would work my tail off.
That's hard work.
Digging ditches
Oh my
and
God.
laying sewer and water line and building catch basins and concrete sidewalks. Oh, it was in the Texas heat. I mean, it was rough. It was rough. Not an easy job. And you didn't make any money. It was like, I think one year I made $7.50 an hour. No, I think I made $7.75 an hour. And then I came back the next year and my uncle paid me $7.50. I'm like, well, I talked to my cousin. Hey, I think I made $7.75 last year. He goes, what? He's only paying you $7.75? I'm like, yeah. He goes, we're going to bump you up to $9. I'm like, oh. So I made the big money and was able to, go to New York in
So when did you? What year was it?
86.
So 86.
Yeah.
Okay. You get to New York.
That was crazy.
Did you get an eight? Like, what do you
No,
do?
no,
An
no.
80s, 80s and 90s in New York. That's pretty intense. I mean, it was a different.
Yeah, it was
It's a
still,
different
it was the
scene.
tail end of, well, we were in the Reagan years, so the economy was in trouble and, it wasn't as bad as the 70s, but,
Yeah.
there was a lot of crack. Crack got popular in the mid 80s. And so there were a lot of people that, crack is whack and all that. And there was a big racial divide in the city too, so, this, I can't remember the kid who was a graffiti artist, Michael, it's been a while. I can't remember his last name, but he got killed.
Oh God.
And then there were some fights in Bensonhurst, which was all sort of white Italian group, and the neighboring Brownsville or whatever it was, East New York. So there was somebody got killed over this, over that, So there was, I mean, I remember I was living out in Brooklyn at the time, and back and forth between Brooklyn and Manhattan, but the train wouldn't stop at certain stops
Yeah.
because it was, it was crazy.
Yeah, I
It was
remember
crazy.
when I was visiting New York back then. Friends lived in Harlem, and I couldn't get a cab driver to take me to Harlem back in the day. I mean, it was a completely different scene.
But it was beautiful, and it was fun, and it was exciting, you
Yeah.
know, and I was in the Playhouse, and got to work with Richard Pinter, who was just a brilliant teacher, and Sandy Meisner came in, and he taught us for a couple of weeks, and, it was just this whole process, this learning process, and of course, coming from Vidor, Texas, and moving into New York City, I would walk down 6th Avenue and just, for years, and just be so grateful
Yeah.
to be able to live in the city,
And breathe it and
I'm like,
experience
I
it.
live
And
in New York City,
yeah.
man.
And
What
you know,
the hell?
when you talk about people who, they come to LA, or they go to New York, coming from a small town. That's kind of the cliche, like coming from a small town with your suitcase and landing in the big city and making it work. But it's a cliche for a reason, because that's the journey that people take.
Well, and the idea of making it work is, that's a serious amount of dedication
Yeah.
and a serious amount of hard work. I mean, I worked 2, 3 jobs, just to keep my rent paid so I could study, and then I graduated the Playhouse, and I was able to study. I got accepted to Win Hammond's class, who taught at Carnegie Hall. And Win Hammond ran the American Place Theater.
Wow.
He developed Sam Shepard. I
Yeah.
mean, Win Hammond is a genius. He's a genius. He's a genius man. He's a genius teacher, director. He's phenomenal. And so I got to study with him for 18 months, 2 years maybe. And, we just do play after play, scene after scene. You're doing all the Tennessee Williams stuff. You're doing Shakespeare. You're doing, it was just, and everyone in that class was of a certain caliber. It was a real high-end class. And so you'd learn a lot just by watching people work. And he had a lighting system. That was his secret.
What does that mean?
He hung lights. So he had a lighting board, and so he would light the scenes as he went along. So it just made it great. You know what I mean? So you'd have a spotlight would come up over here, and have blue lights and green lights and red lights, and just because he was a visual guy. And so when you were watching people work, it was like you're really seeing
production.
It's a production.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't music and all this, but it was enough to be like I'm in a production.
It's amazing. It just sounds like from the get-go, you were surrounded by a lot of powerful influence. Just to keep you inspired, just to keep you on track, because it's working 2 or 3 jobs, you get run down, you get overwhelmed, and you think like, oh my God, and how long is this going to take, and what am I doing? But when you're inspired, like it sounds like you were by these people, you get that laser focus.
And, you get the accolades that go along with it. It's like you get all, people are like, oh, that was so fantastic. I love that moment here when you were, and you get that kind of support, that says, well, okay, I'm on to something. I can do this. So I'm going to just do it as well as I can,
But you were also doing TV in New York, too,
I did
right?
TV in New York, yeah. I did, the Law and Orders and...
Those procedurals?
But this was, I did some of that. But, it took me about 12 years in New York to... I think my first gig, actually, the first Law and Order gig, I played Skank, the Innocent Skinhead. And...
Is that on your resume?
Yeah. It may not be on there anymore, but it was for a long time. And... yeah, I can't remember. I had somebody call. I think I had a manager at the time. I might have been working with. I think I was working with Brett Adams' agency over on 44th Street. They make you come in there and audition, So you had to go bring a couple of monologues in, and they'd take you upstairs to like a little sort of drawing room, and they had a little stage, and you'd go stand up on that stage and you'd do your monologues, a couple monologues. And so I guess I passed. And so I got, they didn't sign me, but they sent me out.
Interesting.
So the first thing I got sent out on was this Law and Order, and they wanted me going for the other character. Not Skank, the Innocent Skinhead, the other guy. And I was like, nah, I like Skank, I want to read for Skank. And so I think Suzanne Ryan was cast, and maybe it was a pre-thing. So I just worked on Skank. I was just doing my own thing. I'm like, I'm just going to go in with Skank and,
do your
whatever.
thing. Yeah.
Because we were all like Al Pacino and all that, you know what I mean? We were doing our things, and I got all tatted up and, skanked out, punk rock guy, and went in there and just did Skank, I was Skank.
I think I can smell Skank. I think so.
And so they called me back, and I went into the room with all the producers, and now I was even more Skank, I mean, I was just like, really... It was everything. It was really everything at the time, and it's a silly like 2-scene gig on Law and Order. But it wasn't like that then. Like that then it was like, man, this is it. And I got.
You thought that was going to be the turning point?
Oh, of course.
Like you
but
made it.
Also, it was also like you were going to be on national television.
Yeah.
It was you're 20 what 23, 24 years
Yikes,
old.
yeah, it's a big deal.
Dude, you are on NBC. On Law and Order. And so I just went in and did the best I could and had fun and a lot of my friends back home saw it, and so they would call me up on the phone and they would give me lines that I said. Like one of my lines was, "What about the equipment?" So that became a thing, But,
That's code.
Hey, what about the equipment? Because I played bass, and I was getting arrested.
So Okay, so this makes a lot more sense. All the theater background that you had.
Yeah,
Broadway.
Broadway.
My gosh.
But yeah, that was
I mean, that's why people go to New York,
yeah,
right?
Broadway was it was amazing. We
How
had
did you get to that point?
well, I joined a group called the Ensemble Studio Theater. Kurt Dempster ran it. He died a few years back, but he was a real mentor, you know. And he had a group. That you would go upstate into Lexington, New York, up in the mountains, and you paid for it. It's like $400 or whatever it was. And you had the week, and they fed you, and you would just work on plays, and you would write stuff, and you know do. I mean, it was a real intensive week, you know, just all about theater, all about this and that and this and that. And anyway, so I did that, and then the next year he invited me to become a member of the Ensemble Studio Theater. This is a bit of a long road to your question, but I became a member of the Ensemble Studio Theater, and they put me into a group called Hell's Kitchen Sink, and we did this thing I believe it was every Monday night. We did all these small plays, and it was a huge hit. It was all comedy, and Jamie Richards ran it, and from there, we do this thing at the Ensemble Studio Theater called the Marathon of One Acts. And if you could get into a marathon play, that was a big deal. I mean,
Okay.
it was hard to get into a marathon play. And so one year I got into 2 marathon plays because I had done both of them in Hell's Kitchen Sink. Cats and Dogs by Sherry Vogelstein, and English, It's Where the Words Are. So there was a big fight about if I was going to be able to do both of them, one in A and one in B, and I ended up winning, and I was able to do both of them, and we got I got a lot of attention from doing that. Then we ended up going to Aspen at the comedy festival, and we ended up winning at the comedy festival. And then I went back to Ensemble Studio Theater, and I did a play by Michael Lewis Wells called Real, Real Gone. It was a beautiful little 30-page play about sons with their fathers had died, you know, and they meet every year. My father had died recently, you know, when I was doing this play. So it was really loaded. But Jeff Hunter from William Morris saw it, and David Kolodner. And I got a phone call a couple weeks later from Jeff Hunter's office, wanted to talk to me, you know. William Morris.
Just got a phone call.
I'm like, yeah, I'll come over and meet you, you know. I mean, this Jeff Hunter was famous. He's passed away last year. But anyway, he brought me over, and I had an agent at the time, and it got a little bit sticky. But Jeff won out and convinced me, and I'm like, look, just please don't submit me for anything until I talk to Lorraine, you know, my agent, because I really loved her, you know, and Lorraine Coffey. And but he didn't listen to me. You know, he's doing his own thing, and then anyway, it all fell apart, and I had to go in and talk to APA and all this, but it all worked out. I mean, they'll drop you in a heartbeat, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
as soon as you drop them, suddenly you're a traitor, you know what I mean?
The politics of it all.
But so we had he submitted me for Sideman,
For Sideman.
which was at CSC, and I went in and I read, and I ended up getting the part, and we went to we did it at 13th Street with Edie Falco,
Right.
Frank Wood, Angelica Torn, Michael Mastro, Kevin Gear. Kevin Gear passed away
Just
last year.
talk really quick about that moment of realizing that you got it.
Well, that's one of those moments where you're just like, oh my God. I mean, it wasn't Broadway. You have to remember.
Right.
It was off Broadway.
It was off
But
Broadway.
it was a paying gig.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was 200, if I remember correctly, it was $246 a week. Which was enough for me to live on, you know, at the time.
Yeah.
I could make it on 200. I didn't have to keep another job. I could just live on my $246 a week, you know. And that might have been after taxes. I hope it was. And but Edie was she was a hurricane.
Yeah, I was just going to say a powerhouse, right?
Warren Light wrote this play, and it's about jazz. His father played trumpet, Don Light, and he played for Claude Thornhill and the big bands. And of course, Warren's mother was, I don't know if she was bipolar, but, you know, she had issues. And so there was a bunch of, just a torrent of emotion in their house. Excuse me. And so he wrote this play. And his mother told him, he said, if you want to win an award, write a play about this family.
Yeah.
And so he wrote Sideman. And
What's that? What does it stand for? Sideman.
you
What's
know,
that?
the trumpet players and musicians are sidemen.
Okay.
You know, so they'll go into different bands, so they're called sidemen.
Okay.
And you know, we were all kind of sidemen, all us actors: Kevin Gear, Michael Mastro, Frank Wood. You know, and Edie. Edie wasn't famous at the time. You know, and Angelica Torn, and Robbie Sella. And we went down to CSC and we worked, and Michael Mayer directed it beautifully. I mean, what an eye this man has. I mean, he's multiple Tony winner, you know, just a phenomenal director. And Warren's writing was beautiful, and all the performances were really full and realized, and I had to kill you. I mean, it was a crippler.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the thing, you know, I just like,
Yeah. Draining.
oh, everybody,
Exhausting?
the whole place is sobbing.
Yeah.
And Warren has it. He said a woman came up to him and said, "Oh my God, it reminds me of my father."
Oh my God.
And she says, and Warren says, "What did he play?" And he goes, "No, he was an accountant." So it was
It was just that universal cathartic experience.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
You can still find reviews of that show. And
Yeah, I
it's
think
really,
Ben Brantley reviewed it, if I remember correctly, and gave us a really glowing review. And what had happened, because we were at CSC, it was a 99-seat theater. We were totally sold out. Todd Hames, who ran the Roundabout, came to see it. Burt Bacharach, who was going to do a show on Broadway at the Roundabout, the show wasn't ready. Whatever happened, I never got the full story, but he fell out. And so they had a slot open. And so Sideman got slotted in to the Roundabout
Oh my
Broadway
gosh.
stage. Yeah. At that point,
That's crazy.
At that point, it became real. You know, at that point, we were like, we're going to Broadway.
How long had you done the show before it went to Broadway?
Well, it was a 16 performance show. You
Oh
know, it
my
was a
gosh.
showcase.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I think it was. And we rehearsed for a month or something, whatever it was, a month and a half. And then we put it up for, you know, another month. And then I was with William Morris at the time, with Jeff Hunter. And I ended up booking a pilot out here with called The 900 Lives of Jackie Fry with Tom Cavanaugh and Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright was hilarious. Tom Cavanaugh is a great, one of the like choice individuals on the planet. You know, he's just like super nice guy. And Jeff Nathanson wrote it, you know, who wrote Catch Me If You Can and a lot of stuff. He's a brilliant writer. And Stephen Wright, we were having lunch, right? And Stephen Wright says, "Hey, Jeff, you really should come over and see my show. You know, I'm doing it over at wherever he's doing it, you know, comedy store." And Jeff's like, "Yeah, I saw it, Stephen. I saw it." And he goes, "Yeah, but I put a comma in it." So yeah, he was great fun. And then so Warren was like, "Look, just come back. Don't stay there. Come back.
Yeah.
Something good's happening. I can't tell you what it is, but something good's happening." And then I came back and we were at the Roundabout. And yeah, so we ran there and then we got picked up to move. You know, it was a big hit. We extended and then we got moved to the John Golden Theater, which was a true Broadway
house, yeah.
And so, and I think our pay went up from $680 to $1,500. You know, I'm like, $1,500.
And you're on Broadway. Life is
You know?
good.
Oh, it was sick money. I got a mutual fund off of that, which I, depleted, but I had one for a while.
So that was 8 performances?
8 performances a week, yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, it was great.
You know, these
Oh, it was so
Broadway,
great.
these theater people, they're just a whole other cut above the rest.
Well, it was interesting, how to keep your performance fresh,
Yeah.
so that was a real challenge. But we had, everybody we were all so happy to be, because we were all, it's our Broadway debut.
Yeah.
All of us together. And then in the middle of it, Edie ended up, after the Roundabout, was it after the, I can't remember exactly what the timing was, but Edie ended up booking The Sopranos during the time. And so she had to leave the show, and then Wendy McKenna came in, who was wonderful too. And so we ended up running for like a year and a half.
Did Frank win a Tony?
Frank won a Tony,
Yeah, he
and
won a
then we
Tony
won
for
a
that.
Tony for Best Play.
Right.
Yeah, Frank was exceptionally good in that show. I mean, just amazing. He was amazing, Because the guy, Warren said somebody come up and talked to him, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and said, "You know what? You've written your character of the father is a prime example of a person with Asperger's
Oh,
disease."
boy.
And so, because they hadn't diagnosed that back in the day. And so, Frank really tapped into that, and it was a beautiful performance. It really was a beautiful performance. I watched it time and time again. And so that was pretty much the Broadway, getting to Broadway.
Did you stay in New York after that show?
I stayed in New York after that show, and then what happened was I, filed my unemployment after the show ended. And I was like down to my last check.
And wait, and you got another call.
And I got another call.
And you got another call.
From Jeff Hunter, and he says, actually his assistant, I believe it was Miguel at the time. He says, "Hey, Sidney Lumet wants to meet with you." I'm like walking down the street. I'm like, "What?" Sidney Lumet wants to meet with you. I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Great. When?" Friday. So I went in and.
He saw you in Sideman.
No.
No?
No, he didn't see me in Sideman. So that's the whole thing. I'm like, well, I know they were casting for something, and I went in and we didn't talk about no script, no nothing, no sides, nothing. We just were meeting. And so I went in and he kissed you on the lips, Sidney kissed you on the lips. That's what he did. That was his thing. And he liked to see what your reaction would be. And, my reaction was, I just got kissed on the lips by Sidney Lumet. And that's pretty cool. So we sat down and we chatted and we got along really swimmingly, he would say. And he calls you sweetheart, or darling. And we had seen a lot of the same plays, because that year I saw everything on Broadway. Mark McDonough had a couple of plays, I think True West, and then The Weir, and Iceman Cometh, and it was no, maybe it wasn't. I think it was Iceman Cometh, and then it's also that great Irish actor did another O'Neill play with Cherry Jones, and. Blue Eyes, what I'm talking about. Gabriel
Byrne?
Yes.
Okay.
Gabriel Byrne. And he was phenomenal in it. And so we talked about that, and Sidney was like, yeah, I didn't think he would have that in him. And I'm like, yeah, it was amazing. He goes, yeah, it was amazing. He goes, all right, darling, why don't you come back on Monday? I'm going to give you the script. You read the script, come back on Monday and, pick a couple of scenes and we'll do them. I'm like, great. So I didn't leave the house for 2 days.
Right.
All I did was cram.
So what was the script?
It's 100 Center Street.
Oh, okay.
It was the 100 Center Street, playing like one of the series regulars. So I went in there on Monday and nailed it, just nailed it.
Did you feel like you did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, it was money. I mean, it was like seriously on the money. And I read with Paula DeVick and Sidney Lumet. Sidney played my father.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And he just kept going. But I had memorized everything, so I didn't know when we would stop at the end of this scene or that scene, or we just keep going.
Did you know everyone's lines, or just?
I pretty much did.
Yeah.
I was ready, man. And so Paula told me later. She says, "Yeah, when you left the room, they were like, God, that was really good. But what about that other guy? The other guy is so much. He's better looking. The other guy's better looking than Joe is. So I mean, what do we? They were looking at that. And then Paula said, and then Sidney turned to Paula and said, "What did you think?" And she said, "The hair stood up on my arms." And so I got the job.
Boom.
Yeah.
Now that ran for
2 years.
Two
Two
years.
seasons. Yeah. It was great, and I think we would have continued running because it was really a great show. But there was some internal problems with A&E at the time, and also 9/11 happened, and so
Yikes.
a bunch of stuff happened.
So that was your first full-time series, yeah?
Yeah, that was my first real gig.
So is that the old school of like 22 episodes, or like,
No, we
how
only
many
did. I
episodes
think we
was
did
it?
13 episodes.
Okay.
I had 10 out of 13, and I made I can't remember exactly what. Well, it wasn't big money for me. I mean, it was I got small
just the
money,
experience.
but it was. I mean, it was more money than I'd ever made. You know what I mean? So I was real happy with it, but compared to like $40,000 an episode, it was way down.
It was a different animal. So did you meet Margot on 100 Center?
I did meet Margot on 100 Center Street.
That's trippy.
Yeah, we never had any scenes together.
No, but
she played the. She was head of the legal defense, whatever that is, legal defense team.
So this is back in 2001-ish?
2000, 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, 2001, 2002.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When I was doing just the reading and realizing that you had worked together, not, one on, but in that family.
Yeah.
And then, we'll talk about Sneaky Pete in a little bit.
Yeah.
But man, it's like full circle.
Full circle.
Just that whole actor's journey.
Well, Margot is so great, and we did a couple of films together with my friend Manny Perez, who was also on Center Street, and he wrote a couple of films, and so we did a couple of things like that. But yeah, I was out here. I can't remember exactly how it all laid out, but I ended up out here, and I guess in 2010 I got a phone call that they want to see me for Justified,
Right.
So I went in and read for. I don't mean to jump around.
No, it's perfect.
Or keep talking like nonstop.
So that was developed by Graham Yost.
Graham Yost, Michael Dinner,
and
Fred Golan. Yeah.
So I love that.
Oh, it was, and Elmore Leonard, who's one of the best writers ever, in my opinion. I was trying to get in. I was trying to get in for the appointment. I couldn't get an appointment. Cammie Patton was casting it in L.A. And
Why'd you want to get an appointment? What was it
well,
about?
I wanted to audition for it.
What was it about that you
Well,
wanted?
I knew it was a heavy recurring role, and I knew it took place in the South.
Yeah.
So I can jump
I
into
can
my
do that.
Southern accent real quick, you know what I mean? Because that's where it is. I just where it is. And so I'm like, look, I can do this as
your
well as
sleep.
anybody else. I need to get in there, and I couldn't get in. We were having a hard time. And then I saw that Gary Lennon, who I'd done a play of his in New York, Rated X, about hustlers, male hustlers back in 86 or something. And I emailed him. I'm like, hey man, can you put in a good word for me with Cammie? He said maybe get in. He's like, absolutely. So he emailed Cammie, and then I got an appointment. He had me on. He CC'd me on it. So it was very cool of him to do. And I went in. I read for Dickie, and killed it. And but then they called me and they're like, listen, they're going to offer that part to Jeremy Davies.
Okay.
And I'm like, man. But they want to see you for Doyle. Will you come in for Doyle? I'm like, yes, I'll come in for Doyle.
What did you describe as one of the wicked Bennett boys? Policeman Doyle Bennett.
Yeah.
What did you say? Sort of the Johnny Cash and of the Bennett clan?
Yeah, I was like the Johnny Cash of the Bennett clan.
Is that who you kind of channeled?
Yeah, well, I play guitar, so I made that known. So I ended up playing guitar on the show. And but like Jeremy and Brad Hankey, who played my brothers, right? They were dirty, filthy, living in a trailer, just like
They're hysterical.
So, and Oliphant was always like, why are you so clean, man? You need to be dirty. I'm like, dude, I'm the clean Bennett, bro. I am the clean Bennett.
One of us has got to be clean.
One of us. I'm a sheriff for
I
crying
love
out
the
loud.
dynamics. I mean, I haven't been able, they ran like 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah,
And
6
you were
seasons.
in
2,
2011.
Season 2.
Season 2?
Yeah. It's a great season. They won awards that season. Margot won the Best Actor,
Right.
supporting, whatever the thing is. Supporting actress.
Yeah.
Best supporting actress, the Emmy.
But the dynamics between you guys.
We had-
was it like that off
we had a
cameras?
blast.
Yeah, it shows.
Dude, we had a
Because
blast.
every time you talk to them, you look like you just want to hit them upside the head.
I loved it. Jeremy is like the perfect guy to play a role like that, where you're just like, are you an idiot?
Exactly.
He's just like, he had it. He just drive you crazy. Oh, he's lovely though. I mean, he's like a lovely guy.
Where was that filmed?
Santa Clarita.
Oh, okay.
Oh, actually, that's where the studio was. But then we went up to the little town up in the hills up there, Greenville or something like that.
Okay.
Weird little place, it's etched out. Apparently, they had like a huge meth problem up there for a while, so they had to go clean it up, and apparently you would get a weird cough up there. If you were up there, if the wind was blowing.
Oh, because what's
So,
in the air?
Whatever is in the dirt up there that would kick around. Everybody's like, I'm getting the Greenville cough.
Got it. Greenville cough.
Yeah. But it was cool. I mean, we had fun. We had a lot of fun,
And Scott, and Justified, a lot of people say never really got the just desserts that it deserved.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, all the
It's got a huge fan base.
Walton Goggins and the whole cast. Tim and
What did you walk away with
JoJo Bates
from that experience?
Well, it was a great one. It was a really great one. Well, it's all the same. You work for a while and then you're off. You have nothing to do, and you're like, what am I going to do? I've been spending the last 5 months working.
Right.
It's like perfect, So I can't remember what happened after that. Oh yeah, no, I did a lot of stuff after that. Actually, I did Dark Knight Rises. I went and met with Christopher Nolan. Right, that was pretty interesting. John Papsideros brought me in. And I'm a huge fan, and I mean I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan's. I mean he's just and Wally Pfister, and his DP. But I'd just seen Following again. Like, I'd seen it probably 3 or 4 times. And I just wanted to kind of bone up on my Nolan stuff. So I watched Memento and Following and, a couple other things. And I was watching Following, and he goes into the guy's apartment, right? And he opens the door, and there's a Batman insignia on the guy's apartment door. Now, this is 25 years before he did the Batman series. And so I'm like, brought it up to him. I'm like, so what? That's crazy foreshadowing. He goes, yeah, there was one in Memento too. I said, I didn't see that one. I said, but right there on the thing, there's Batman. And, this was his 3rd Batman movie. He's,
Yeah.
huge. And I ended up getting the job, I played the DP, the sewer guy,
That is amazing.
Sewer guy that finds a dead body, talks about it. Yeah, I washed up last week on the.
Perfect.
Yeah, you're a high-end kid. You really got a future.
Wow. This is like a roller coaster ride. So Justified.
It's my life.
How? So you're in the orbit of, Graham Yost and those guys, right?
I'm on their radar.
And it seems like when you do good work and you show up, you kind of you'll get the phone calls like, hey, we're working on this, we're doing this.
Yeah.
You want to come in, kind of thing. So was that how it happened with
Sneaky
Pete?
I got a phone call. I was in Vancouver shooting a film, and then Law and Order called, and Warren had.
So have you done like 500 episodes of Law and Order?
No, I've done a few, but I got to play this recurring character, Mickey D'Angelo, the defense attorney, and back in the day, Warren Light, I brought him up to Sydney, because I'd done Sidemen, and I was doing Center Street, and I said, you should really, actually David Black, who was our co-executive producer, I'm like, Sydney should meet Warren. Don't you think? And he's like, yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to call Warren and you guys need to meet. And so they met. And so Warren ended up getting an episode on Center Street. He got to write an episode of Center Street. And so this is 2001, I think. And he says to me, at one point, Warren comes up, he's like, you're the only actor that ever got me a job. I'm like, oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad, it was a great episode. He didn't feature me, he featured somebody else, but hey, it was still a great episode. But anyway, he said, I'm gonna get you a job one day. And so 15 years later,
oh my gosh,
he finally got me a job on Law and Order, and I came back and I did I think 4 or 5 of them, as that character. So thanks, Warren.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Warren. But we were talking about Sneaky Pete. We're going to get into that, correct?
Yeah. I want to know what that phone call was like. Okay, but before you start on this, so, we get word that we're going to be having this interview with you. And so I start to binge Sneaky Pete.
Oh, yeah.
We get the interview, and I binge, and I'm thinking after I finished all the episodes, oh my God, what do I get myself into? Yeah, because I don't want to give the plot away. I don't want to give the story away, because if you haven't seen Sneaky Pete, it's a must-see show.
It's a good one. It's a good one. It's brilliant.
It's an adrenaline rush.
It's brilliant.
It's brilliant.
It really is.
So talk about that phone call. Talk about.
It was an easy phone call. It wasn't a big deal at all. I was doing a film in Vancouver, and I got a phone call from from my manager, and he said, Greg Dorfman, he says, hey, they just offered you a role on Sneaky Pete. There's no money. You have to fly yourself to New York, put yourself up. And I'm like, oh, fantastic. That sounds great. I'd love to do it.
Sure, why not?
So I had points. So I, flew myself out. And a friend of mine, Geneva Carr, God bless her, said, you could stay in my spare bedroom. I'm like, fantastic. So it worked out, So I was able to go there and met Desmond Harrington, and who was from Dexter, a friend of mine, David Zayas. They knew each other. So, and then we, kidnapped Giovanni, threw him in a trunk, and went out and told him that you need to take us to your mother and the $11 million. And that's what we did. And so that was it.
That's the line.
And then I flew back to L.A. and, it's like, well, now we wait to see if we get picked up.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm going to be pretty heavy in it if we do. And they got picked up, and I got the phone call. They're guaranteeing you $5, a little more money this time. They'll actually put you up in a hotel and give you a per diem. And
so
I'm like,
where did it filmed in?
Filmed in New York.
In New York.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was sweet. And then Margot was on it again. So we reunited.
So did you know that she was, well, of course you knew.
Yeah, I
yeah,
knew.
of course you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they had shot the pilot along before that, before they picked up the first season.
But that was CBS.
That was
the pilot aired on
CBS,
CBS, and then they chose to not
Yeah, I think it was
continue
I don't know
with it.
why.
I don't know why
Too
either.
racy maybe or something.
I don't know. But it was interesting because in an interview, Bryan Cranston said, at first, when we found out the CBS wasn't going to greenlight this, we kind of went, like, what? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then Amazon came around and knocked on the door and realized that it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Because when you can just focus on 10 episodes,
Yeah.
as opposed to that longer rollout, you can really get in deep, right?
Yeah.
You can really
Yeah.
just make the story, because the writing is so tight.
So
The
tight.
it's an adrenaline rush.
It is.
Every single episode just peaks and peaks and peaks.
Yeah, it's a really strong show. I think people are loving it, so we're getting a lot of good feedback on it, We'll see what happens.
And what about working with Giovanni and
Giovanni's
the whole
great fun.
cast is crazy. I mean,
The whole cast
they're
is
so
absolutely
solid.
crazy.
The chemistry between everybody.
Marin is great. Margot is great.
Yeah.
Peter is great. Giovanni's great. Desmond's great. John Ailes was phenomenal
Yeah.
in it. I mean, you're like, what? John Ailes would have like monologues and pages of text. And we'd be going, well, I think I'll have a coffee. And he's like, rah, 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 rah. But it just, he just come in and nail it. And then you're working with John Avnet directed an episode. Michael Denner directs. Helen Schaefer and Laura Ennis, and it was a great group of people to work with.
Now,
Really
Giovanni said it's been the hardest thing he's ever done.
Well, Giovanni's got to
So-
work all the time.
Yeah,
You
but it just seems. I think it goes back to the writing. It's so multi-layered. It's not just about a con man.
True.
Right? I mean,
True.
he actually has a close relationship with these people that he's conning.
Yeah.
And so it's very multi-layered. And I
And-
never got that sense, like with you, that it's just a one-directional. Everyone seems very complicated.
Yeah. Well, that's
There's, like,
what
lots going on.
as far as I see it, that's what you go for. It's like, okay, I'm going to play a bad guy who's going to do some very bad things. But what is he? Who is he?
Yeah.
And how is he like me? What kind of darkness is there in this that can bring to that?
So is this the darkest? I mean, you've played some pretty dark stuff.
This is pretty dark, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was looking at some of your other stuff. It's like, okay, there's a little bit of a pattern here.
yeah, there's some dark stuff in
There's
there.
some dark stuff.
But then if you go look at the glamour of it all, this little short that I wrote and directed and starred in, you'll see a different side of Joseph Lyle.
And I also, the breakup artist, that was really cute.
Yeah.
But you talked about doing comedy, so it
I
kind of
did
makes
do that,
sense
yeah.
that.
I won an award for that. I won a Best Actor award in Newport Beach for that, The Breakup Artist. Yeah, and I thought it was a good little movie,
No,
you
it
know.
was a cute little film.
Vinny Rubino, and that was his baby, Bobby Cannavale was going to do it, then he couldn't do it, so he called me and said, you need to go to meet my friend Vinny Rubino and talk to him about doing this movie. And so I said, all right. So I went over there and met with Vinny, and we hit it off. He's like, you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. you know. So we did it.
I love
mean,
how
like
these things
no
work
money.
out.
It was like just through the, over to Jersey. It was like had to be the hottest year ever. It was a hot summer, but anyway, it was fun. We had a good time.
This is a segue into going back to the whole Renaissance man idea that I have of you. So you've been writing
Yeah,
Glamour of It All.
the glamour.
Did
of
you
it all.
direct too?
I did direct that.
You
Yeah,
did direct that.
Yeah.
So is that something that people can
Go
take a look at?
Yeah, go
or?
look at it. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. We'll be
5
on-
guys auditioning for the new David Milch HBO project.
And
That's
you
all
also,
I'm telling you.
You've also got a music. You
Yeah,
also do your music
I also
thing.
play guitar, and sing.
Now, is that
songs.
something you always did?
No, I picked it up a few years ago, actually in the 90s, I guess. So, yeah, for a pretty long time I've been playing. I learned how to play chords. I had a friend of mine who lived with me, Marcellus Hall. He had a band called Railroad Jerk, and they were a great band in New
great name.
York. Yeah, they were really good. Along with John Spencer Blues Explosion, Mother Headbug. There was a whole 90s indie scene down in the Lower East Side where we all lived, and so he taught me some chords, and would occasionally play guitar with me. So, and that sort of stuck. Once you're able to actually move your fingers, because it's very hard to move your fingers.
It's very hard, yeah.
But once you get to move your fingers,
And you get the calluses,
yeah,
so it doesn't hurt so much.
Yeah. Now mine are just, they're not even calluses anymore. They're just hard, And then you start finding, scales, and you're like, oh, I could play the D over here. Oh my God.
So is it kind of an
suddenly
outlet
you're in
for you? Like,
it really is. I think playing music, if you really play it, it can be a real cathartic, sort
Yeah.
of honest kind of expression of one's self, I guess.
Yeah.
Some art in it, that's, and, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to be able to play music. I highly recommend, picking up the piano or the guitar or something.
it's not easy though. Not everybody has a
No.
knack for it.
And it takes a time to get to where you can play, but once you can, it's it really is it's something one should do, I think.
Who inspires you musically?
A little, I think, I got into jazz when I started doing sideman,
Right.
And you look at guys like Clifford Brown and Miles Davis and Art Blakey and Lee Morgan and Dexter Gordon and Coltrane, and just, those guys are such musical geniuses.
They're masters,
I
yeah.
mean, Thelonious Monk, and all, and Art Tatum, I'll never ever reach that kind of level in music, but those guys were really inspiring, and I like people like PJ Harvey. I'm just learning the PJ Harvey song right now, which is so just strong and just ballsy. She's such a genius, and the old blues guys like Robert Johnson, and yeah. I got a great teacher here, Jason Land. He's inspiring too.
So you're taking,
here
you're
in
studying?
Burbank. He teaches guitar Ninjas, and he's smart and funny, and he plays in a Led Zeppelin cover band.
That's fantastic.
He plays like Jimmy Page, man.
My God.
He can shred. He can
That is
seriously
great.
shred. So you like there, and and he's like showing me something. He's like, I'm like, dude, just play like 5 notes.
Yes,
man.
please.
Please.
Be
Just
kind to
5
me.
notes, and I'll follow you around. But he's great. So, I guess like that.
What else do you have going on? What can people look forward to?
Well, I just did an NCIS.
Okay. How far in advance do they shoot?
I think it airs May 21st, if I
Okay.
remember correctly. It's a couple scenes with Mark Harmon.
You need to get more active on your social media.
I'm not
young
very
man.
good at the social media
And,
thing.
it's just kind of that reluctant part of the business. But
I always feel like, it's like a weird, shameless sort of promoting.
no.
It is, though.
People
it's
want to
like-
connect.
Yeah,
It's
it's
all
true,
about
true,
connecting.
true.
People want to know what you're up to.
Yeah, I try to, throw it out there.
Yeah.
When I got stuff going. We did a big Sneaky Pete push, and
You're doing amazing, solid work. It needs to be recognized
thank
and
you so
seen.
much. Yeah.
So promote, promote. I will do what I can on my end.
Thank you, Tammy.
Okay.
You're much better at it than I am.
I'm working on it. Speaking of social media, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, Joseph L. Taylor.
Joseph L. Taylor.
yeah.
Okay.
And, Facebook, Joe Taylor. Good luck. Good luck finding that.
Like and follow the pages, right?
Yes, thank you.
Retweet, all that good stuff.
You could tweet mean stuff and whatnot. hate tweets.
Why?
No, I'm just kidding.
It's all
Tweet
good.
nice things. Just be nice
hate
tweeters.
tweets, I know.
You know.
Okay. One of these things. Before we wrap up, you can find me on Twitter. What's my handle? At Tammy Govea. It's not complicated. You hear that? You hear that? That's an original tune
That is original
from
tune.
Joseph Lyle Taylor.
Won't you see me?
Watch the Rain.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good-
Where can they find it? SoundCloud?
SoundCloud? I got a
SoundCloud?
couple of things up there on SoundCloud.
I love this song. I really do like this song.
Yeah. My friend Bud Cuccia recorded that for me. Yeah. No, it's a sad line. We all die, what can we do?
We got another 30 years,
You
right?
gotta watch
If
the
we're
rain.
lucky.
Yeah. Be sure and watch the rain, It's beautiful.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Tammy.
Come back.
Started to cry.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Watch the rain wash away another sunny day. Yeah, I know I won't be here forever, they say.